I have lived my professional life by a very specific, painful rule. If you do your job too well, you become the furniture. For 6 years, I was the load-bearing wall of Vanguard Strategy Group. I was the one who translated the partners' vague, alcohol-soaked visions into actual, working infrastructure. I was the one who fixed the $10 million errors in the middle of the night so that the men in the tailored suits could wake up and take the credit over brunch. I was sitting in that same ergonomic chair, the one with the frayed mesh that scratched at my lower back and a coffee stain on the armrest that I'd been staring at since 2019. Across the polished mahogany desk, Julian, the senior partner, was performing his favorite ritual. He slid a thick, navy blue folder toward me with a look that was half sympathetic grimace, half rehearsed smile. I knew the contents before my fingers even touched the leather. This was rejection number 12. Isla, Julian began, his voice dropping into that low, conspiratorial register he used when he was about to screw someone over. You know how much we value your contributions. You are the rock of this firm. Truly. But Q4 is a sensitive time for leadership transitions. The board felt we needed some fresh, external energy for the senior director position. We've decided to go with Bianca. Bianca. She had been at the firm for exactly 8 months. Her primary qualification was that she shared a tennis coach with the CEO's wife and knew how to use words like synergy and disruption in sentences that meant absolutely nothing. I had spent the last 8 months fixing every single report she produced because she didn't know how to pull a basic data query. Bianca has that spark, Julian continued, oblivious to the fact that I was currently experiencing a systemic internal shutdown. But listen, I've personally flagged your name for the spring cycle. You're our MVP, Isla. We need people like you to keep our feet on the ground while others reach for the stars. We need you to guide Bianca, help her find her feet, you know? I didn't get angry. Not yet. Instead, a bubble of hysteria rose in my chest, and I did something that made Julian's customer service smile glitch. I started laughing. It wasn't a soft, professional giggle. It was a deep, visceral sound that echoed off the glass walls of the conference room. It was the sound of a woman who had finally run out of team player currency. Something funny, Isla? Julian asked, his brow furrowing as he adjusted his $400 tie. Yeah, I said, standing up, my knees shaking just slightly. Me. I'm the joke, Julian. I've been the rock for 6 years. I saved the Ascension Health account when your project manager quit in a panic. I built the reporting automation that saved this firm 40,000 man-hours a year. And yet, I'm still sitting in this same broken chair while you give my title to a woman who can't even open a CSV file without my help. I walked back to my desk, passing Bianca's new office. She was already arranging succulents on her desk, holding a gold-embossed business card, Senior Director of Healthcare Strategy. My title. The one I had earned 3 years ago but was never allowed to wear. That night, I didn't just cry. I sat on the cold floor of my apartment at 2 a.m., surrounded by empty takeout boxes, and felt the weight of every 70-hour work week I'd ever pulled. I called my sister, Elena, a forensic accountant who views the world as a series of balance sheets. Isla, stop, Elena said, cutting through my sobbing. You are experiencing the sunk cost fallacy in real time. You've spent 6 years building a house for people who won't even let you stand on the porch. That isn't a career. It's a hostage situation. If they won't give you a seat at the table, it's because they're afraid you'll realize you own the whole room. Quit. Not today. Not dramatically. Quit caring. Start planning. I sat in the dark for hours after we hung up. I realized that my value wasn't being ignored, it was being leveraged. They kept me in the basement because if I moved to the penthouse, the whole building would collapse. And in that moment, I decided to let it. The next morning, I walked into Vanguard Global with a smile that was sharp enough to cut glass. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't working for Julian. I was working for Isla Vance Consulting. I began executing what I called the indispensability audit. I spent my nights documenting every proprietary workflow I'd ever created. I realized that over the years, to make my own life easier, I had built a ghost in the machine. I had created hundreds of custom scripts and data bridges that lived only on my personal cloud drive, mapped to the company's servers. Vanguard didn't just rely on me. They were physically incapable of functioning without the specific, undocumented logic I had built into their systems. I became a master of weaponized helpfulness. I volunteered for the most complex, disastrous client relationships, specifically Mercy Trust, our biggest revenue generator. I became their absolute lifeline. When their systems crashed at midnight, they didn't call the Vanguard support line. They called my personal cell. I made sure that every victory Mercy Trust saw was directly tied to my name, my voice, and my personal touch. By month 4, rejection number 13 arrived. This time, they promoted Nate, a guy who consistently missed deadlines but was the CEO's favorite squash partner. Julian expected me to be devastated. He even called me into his office to give me another rock speech. Nate has that executive presence, Isla, Julian said, not even looking at me this time. I understand, Julian, I said, smiling so widely it almost hurt. Nate is a great choice. I'll make sure his transition is memorable. Julian looked confused, almost disappointed that I didn't beg for feedback. He didn't know that 3 weeks prior, I had secured a small business loan and had been having very quiet, very legal dinner meetings with the board of Mercy Trust. I wasn't poaching, I was providing a solution to a problem they didn't even know they had yet, the imminent departure of the only person who understood their data. I gave myself 6 months to the day. On a rainy Tuesday morning, I walked into Julian's office. No appointment. No coffee. Just a single, crisp white envelope. I'm resigning, I said, placing it on the mahogany desk. Effective immediately. I've used my remaining 3 weeks of PTO to cover my notice period, so today is my last day. The color drained from Julian's face in a way that was almost poetic. Isla, don't be dramatic. Is this about Nate? We can talk about a title change. Maybe principal-led? It's not a negotiation, Julian. My belongings are already in my car. I've handed over all the official company files to Nate. Wait, Julian stammered, standing up so fast his chair hit the wall. The Mercy Trust integration goes live on Friday. You're the only one who knows the back-end architecture. The board is flying in from London. I suggest you ask your senior directors, Bianca and Nate, to handle it, I said, my voice as smooth as silk. They have that spark and executive presence you like so much. I'm just a rock, remember? And rocks are heavy. They're hard to carry. So, I've decided to put myself down. As I walked out of the lobby for the last time, carrying my small box of desk plants, I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in 6 years. I could hear the faint sound of Julian shouting into his phone from 3 floors up. The load-bearing wall had just walked out the door, and I could already hear the first cracks forming in the foundation. If this story stirred something inside you, don't scroll away in silence. Tap like. It tells us these stories deserve to be told. Subscribe to Vengeful Goddess for unforgettable tales of betrayal, resilience, and justice, stories you won't hear anywhere else. Turn on the bell icon, so the next story reaches you the moment it drops. Your support keeps these voices alive. Because sometimes, revenge isn't loud, being heard is.